Hello, and welcome to this overview tour of Mercury. My name is Evan, and for the next little while, we'll be looking at some of Mercury's main features. As I hope you know, Mercury is a reporting and analysis application that is intended to make your work life easier. It was designed with a few goals in mind. First, to combine reporting and analysis so that once you have report results, you can analyze in place, no more exporting, importing, doing it all over again if you forget something. It was designed to help make management of your reports easier. You can see that on my screen I have quite a few reports, and I think it's easy for many people to get lost in a sea of reports. Where's the one that I wanted? Which flavor is it? And finally, we wanted it to be easy to create and deploy a report so that you don't have the long cycle times going back and forth between you and a technical person when you need something changed or something new created. So having said that, let us take a look at a few of the features. I'm going to start by filtering my reports list to a few of the reports we'll be using for our demonstration. I hope you saw how easy that was to filter. There are other management features available, and maybe after we've seen a report or two, we'll come back and take a look. For now, let's just run one. Running reports is very easy. You select the one you're interested in the list, and a parameter entry area pops up below. Many parameters have associated lookups. These lookups are flexible and reusable. And once you have a lookup, for example, this is a company lookup. My demonstration data today includes only a single company, but in the real world, many organizations are multi-company, and Mercury is good at doing multi-company reporting. In any event, you select what you're interested in the lookup list. You fill in your other parameter values, and probably most folks are used to pop-up calendars. These data happen to be standard Microsoft sample accounting data, and I happen to know that the dates are in the future. So rather than navigate a few years with the calendar, I'm just going to use the keyboard. So you enter your parameters, you click the big Run button, and here is your first pivot report, all rendered and ready to go. As you probably have guessed from the name and the description, this is a summary of general ledger transactions. If you're interested, this happens to be based on Microsoft's Dynamics GP accounting platform data. So let's take a look at some of the things you can do. If you're familiar with Excel pivot tables, you'll see right away what's happening. And we're big Excel fans at Mercury, but in my humble opinion, Mercury's pivot features are easier to use than Excel's in most cases. You simply manipulate what you see to drag and drop and rearrange the report like you want it. For example, instead of having months in the columns, let's just get rid of those, and we'll put years in the columns. Now, this report does not break things down by company because in my data there's only one sample company, but if you had more, it would be easy to show a company breakout as well, and you can expand or collapse as needed. And for those of you who are familiar with accounting, you should be reassured that the totals of all the debits and credits net to zero. And as with pivot tables, You can get more detail or less detail as you like. You can rearrange things easily by dragging and dropping. Now we've made the posting type an outer sort rather than the profit and loss. Speaking of which, if you wanted a simple P&L, you could filter easily just to show P&L accounts, and now you instantly have a yearly P&L summary. A couple of things I'd like to point out here. Number one, since we've filtered to a single posting type, that's not giving us much information, so we'll remove that from the report. You'll notice that the filter stays in effect. And speaking of filters, you can see easily down at the bottom of your report window the details of the filter that's in effect. Even better, you can temporarily disable it and re-enable it without having to create the filter all over again. Now, if you want a report with different parameters, that's very easy. You can just change the parameter values and run the report again. Now, you'll notice that you get the original layout here. We spent a few seconds, maybe 10 or 15 seconds in the real world rearranging the report. So no big deal to do it here too. You could go through the same manipulations. But if that's what you want every time you run the report, that may get annoying after a while. So we'll look at another feature of Mercury, which is saving your rearrangements and customizations. So we'll take the report that we just reorganized and we will save it as a favorite layout. So you give it a name and a description, which is handy because the searching we did earlier will also be able to find favorites. You tell Mercury whether you want it visible just to you or to everybody who can see the report in the first place. You can control which users get to see which reports. And we'll tell Mercury that we want to save the layout and save the parameter values. So having saved this favorite, and I'm just going to refresh the list. Now, when you click on this report, you'll see a list of favorites pop out. Here's the one we just saved. This looks like it's a leftover from a prior test or demonstration. In order to run this, you can immediately click its own little run button, and you'll get the report just the way you ran it. And we'll show you another feature. Pardon my clumsiness. Now that you've run a favorite, it remains in effect and it's easy to run again. You can simply change parameters. Now you get the layout you wanted, but with different parameter values. And if you ever get confused, you can just hover over the Result tab and Mercury will give you a nice little reminder of how the report was generated, what the parameter values were, how much data you got, how long it took, and whether a favorite was in place. Okay, that's a very quick introduction to pivot reports. Very flexible analysis, and again, the nice part is you just manipulate what you see. Everything is drag and drop and very flexible. There is another type of report native to Mercury called a table report that does not offer pivot features, but it's very fast and it still has a lot of flexibility. So we'll look at a table report. And I'm going to clean up the screen a little bit. We'll get rid of a couple of these. So we have our original pivot report the way we rearranged it. We have a different report that's a table report, and I think you can see immediately that these are qualitatively different. The pivot report allows, well, pivoting. You can easily rearrange rows and columns. The table report doesn't give you that much analysis power, but it's really fast, even for large data sets, and there's still a lot you can do. For example, let's see how many customers we've got. So totaling and subtotaling is very easy. You can also easily group your table reports. And with a couple of clicks, you have everything grouped by class, and you can expand or collapse as you desire. We'll put that back. A couple of other features we can look at here. First, you get nice handy little sorting icons to tell you exactly how your report is sorted. If you're like me, when you see a grid, the first thing you do is try and figure out how it's organized. And if you have multiple sort levels going on, that can be problematic. Mercury will tell you instantly how your sorting is organized. So now it's first by class and then by the customer ID within the class. One or two other features we'll look at quickly for table reports. Also, if you are afflicted like me, you'll see the document amount, which in this database is jargon for originally billed, and the outstanding amount. And I start doing mental arithmetic to figure out what has been paid. So let's save ourselves that effort, and we are just going to add a calculated field in Mercury so that we don't have to do that arithmetic all the time. So we'll tell Mercury a little bit about the contents of the field, and we will position the paid amount just after our outstanding. And here's where we give it a formula. You've got some nice pick lists that will help you. And by definition, the paid amount is originally billed less whatever is outstanding. So here's our expression. We say OK, and now we instantly have our paid amount column. The nice thing about this is a couple of things, actually. First, if the original person who created the report left this out, you're not dependent on anybody to create it. You can do it yourself. Second, just like we saw in the other report, we could save this layout as a favorite and it would remember our calculated field for us, so it's always available when we want to run it. And finally, we'll look at another quick Excel-like feature that will do some conditional formatting. Similar to Excel, you can format cells based on their contents. Let me digress. Many of these features are also available on pivot reports. Those have conditional formatting too. It's a little harder to demonstrate there because the report layout is flexible and hierarchical. So we'll just show you what it looks like here. We're going to look at everybody who has paid us nothing. So we'll take the default of zeros and the fill, and it looks like we've got quite a few customers who owe but have not paid. So in tried and true demo tradition, rather than focusing on our actual business problem here, we're going to move on and look at a couple of other features. So we will look at another table report. This one will be a little more sophisticated. Here we have two lookups, the company list that you've seen before, a customer number list, that can be as flexible as you wish. Since I'm lazy, I'm just going to select everything, and we'll run this report. And you can see that Mercury offers some nice master detail flexibility. You've got little hints on the left to show you which ones have detail. And this one actually happens to be a 3-level master detail report. For every customer, we can see the documents, which in this database is jargon for equivalent to invoices or sales. And then for each invoice, if there are any, you can see the actual payment amounts. So in general, a lot of flexibility here. So that was another flavor of table report. There are a couple of other Mercury features that I'd like to touch on quickly here. One is the ability to custom group. And we're going to go back to our original pivot report here, and instead of doing it by year, we're going to make things a lot more complicated and show the activity by actual transaction date. Now, probably this isn't something that you want, so instead you can group it very flexibly. You can do it by month. You can do it by month and year, and so forth. All of this on the fly. You can also create your own custom groupings. These data are a little spotty, so I won't try to show you these now, but the idea is you make these up however you want. Maybe we can find a report that will demonstrate that. For now, let's look at a different report. Once again, flexibility of lookups. This is standard Microsoft AdventureWorks demonstration data. And you can see that in this report, salespeople have been arbitrarily grouped into sales teams. I'm going to get rid of the name and we'll simplify this a little bit more. This doesn't require any fancy table setup in your database. You can do this all completely within Mercury. So I'm going to digress a little bit here. And we won't go into the details, but the point I'm making is you have complete control over how your groups are set up. And the groups can be reused under any circumstances they're appropriate in. For example, we've got accounts receivable aging buckets set up. We also have special flavors of those to account for the fact that Microsoft's sample data is in the future. The point is, you can create the groupings the way you want, and you can reuse them across reports. So let's remove the grouping here, and you can see the way the data originally started out. So custom grouping and ungrouping on the fly is very handy. Now, having talked about custom grouping, you can also do custom sorting. This is also from Microsoft's AdventureWorks sample data. And if you'll notice, the product category, which is sortable, like anything else, is a non-standard sort. The most important product category, at least according to the sorter, is bikes, followed by accessories, components, and clothing. So this is not sorted in alphabetical order. So just like custom groupings, it's very easy to create and apply custom sorts. You don't need the help of any database person or IT guru. You don't need to add extra data tables. You just tell Mercury how you want your values arranged. Okay. So that has been a rather quick look at some of the main Mercury features. Let's take a look at some report management features. You saw how easily that I filtered the list just to focus on the demo reports that we wanted to show you today. There are other tools available also. You can group your reports by category, and you assign the category when you create a report. We'll look at one of those next, as many as you like. You can group your reports by report type, and we saw examples here of pivot reports and table reports. You can also, from within Mercury, incorporate crystal reports and SSRS reports. It's nice because everything now is in the same list, run the same way, and with your crystal and SSRS reports, you can take advantage of Mercury's lookups, company lookups, and vendor lookups, date pickers, whatever you've got. So any investment you have in those platforms is preserved. Other features, you'll notice that there's been some color coding here, which I find particularly handy. So you can organize your reports by color. You can sort however you want. You can also, which I find slick, you can filter based on report color. So if your report colors, if you've taken the time to make your report colors meaningful, that is also handy. And finally, for when your list gets large, you can pin so that no matter how you scroll, your pinned reports will remain visible at the top of your list. So those are a lot of handy management features available. Okay, last thing we want to look at is how easy it is to create a report in Mercury. Now, Mercury reports are based on queries from your production databases or demo databases, and those queries are created by a technical person outside of Mercury. We did that deliberately because in the real world, databases are messy, and you've got better things to do than figure out how your database is organized and how to get the right data out of it. Worse, it's easily possible in many cases to come up with a result that's wrong and nobody knows it. So we have left it to the database and IT people to create the data retrieval queries for you, and after that, they're out. They get to do what they're good at, you get to do what you're good at, and there's no endless back and forth. So let's create our report. We'll give it a name. And a description. Many times we, especially when doing demos, don't like to take the time and trouble to put in a good description. Everybody just wants to get on with it and see how things work. I'm trying to be disciplined here because the name and the description are searchable and filterable in the reports list. So if you take an extra few seconds to give your report a good description, it will pay off later. We'll make this by default a pivot report. We'll give it a category, and you can choose from amongst existing categories, or you can make up your own on the fly. We'll specify the connection. We talked a minute or two ago about Mercury pulling data from your production or demo databases. A connection is what tells Mercury where your database server is, where your data reside. And then the source of the report is the specific query that retrieves the data that you're interested in. Mercury can use a view or a stored procedure, and as we discussed a second ago, those are typically created by an IT or a database person outside of Mercury. Once that query has been done, Mercury is able to find it, you choose the query that you're interested in, and Mercury will read the query, figure out what parameters are required, what fields are available, and so forth. So this particular stored procedure to get GL transactions has 3 parameters. The first one is a company name, or better, a list of company names in case you have a multi-company installation. And we will associate this parameter entry with the lookup list that you've seen before. Now we'll specify how the fields are arranged. We are going to say that the account categories are down the rows, and we are going to summarize the balance. That will be in the data area, and we will put the years across the columns, and we will leave it at that for now. That's pretty much all there is to it. There are a couple of settings that are available for table reports only. In this little overview, we're not going to bother to set up both flavors of report at the same time. We'll just concentrate on the pivot. Finally, you tell Mercury which users are allowed to run the report. And that's really all there is to it. In a minute or two, you have a new report created, and best of all, the new report that you can see in your management list is going to instantly show up in the report list of anybody who's allowed to see it. There's no separate deployment step needed. It's going to be available the next time that user runs Mercury or refreshes the set of reports that are available. So we'll run our new report. Here's the company lookup. It's exactly the same one we've seen before. It's easily reused. And that's it. Now you'll notice that the formatting looks a little odd for a year, and that's because I forgot to tell Mercury how we want that number formatted. Editing the report is a breeze. We will just find that field, and instead of telling Mercury that we want to display it as a quote regular number like you would a dollar amount, we'll say that we don't want commas. And I'm actually using a database that's a Mercury layout database that's over the web. It's remote, and that's why it takes a few extra seconds to save. Depending on how your installation is configured, you may get a little bit quicker performance than I'm seeing. So we will run this again, and this time we'll give it a 2-year span so it looks a little more interesting. So now the numbers, the years are formatted properly. So very easy to create the report, just a few minutes. As you've seen, if I left something out and some other user wanted more detail, that user simply needs to run the report and change the layout as desired. So it's very fast to do, and you don't have to be perfect. You just need to create something reasonable, and whoever is using the report to do analysis can take it from there. All right. That's pretty much everything we wanted to cover today. We've looked at some report management features, finding the report that you need, everything's in the same place, color coding, pinning, sorting. We've looked at how easy it is to run a report and rerun a report. We've looked at pivot reports. We have looked at table reports and have seen a couple of other features like calculated fields, saving favorites, and so on. So thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw and you want to try Mercury yourself, it's a free download, no restrictions during the trial. Just visit our website at www.mercurybi.com and head for the downloads page. It's a simple installation, and it comes with a local demo database so you can get started very easily. Thanks for watching.